My name's Pete Woods. You're watching Hexhamtv. We're here at Hexham Abbey, and if you can hear any noises in the background, there's some rehearsals going on for a concert tonight as part of the Hexham Abbey Festival. But I'm here today talking to Jane. Jane, who are you and what connection have you got with Hexham Abbey?
Hi, well, thanks very much for inviting me to talk to you. My name's Jane Gibson, and we're actually sitting in part of the project that I worked on for Hexham Abbey, which is the Hexham Abbey Project, which I think many of you who live in Hexham will have looked at over the last few years and seen building works and new things developing and opening here. My background is as an archaeologist, but about 4 or 5 years ago I came to work at Hexham Abbey for a couple of years, bringing the Hexham Abbey project to fruition. It had long been an aspiration to create some new spaces for the Abbey, and spaces where we could tell the stories about the people who've lived and worked in and around the Abbey over 1,000 years since Wilfrid turned up here in the 7th century and founded that Abbey. But we had a challenge because the Abbey at the Reformation lost all its ancillary buildings, and literally we just had this beautiful church, a spectacular parish church for our community. But the spaces to tell those stories, the spaces to have school children come and learn, we didn't have those. And about 12 years ago, the first thoughts came about getting a grant from the Heritage Lottery Fund to create new spaces. We started with a very ambitious project to recreate the cloisters of the Abbey, which you can see if you walk past on Beaumont Street in a sort of ruined state now, just the outside edges. If you go somewhere like Durham Cathedral, you'll see the cloisters as they would have been. And there was a vision to create a modern, avant-garde glass cloister. We went to the lottery with that. We put together a sort of lottery bid. We showed that there was an interest in finding people coming and finding that story. But the lottery felt that was quite a big project. That was a £7 million project. And they felt that perhaps we should look at the buildings we already had or could have access to, rather than starting to build something totally from scratch. And then perhaps come back in a few years' time and look at that next stage if we decided to do that. And it was around that time that the ancillary buildings that had been the old monastic cloister buildings of the Abbey became available due to local government reorganisation and such like. And the County Council very kindly offered the Abbey back the Carnaby building at a peppercorn transfer to take on. That was a wonderful opportunity. You immediately think, oh gosh, a fantastic heritage building. That's wonderful, but of course it would have needed and did need a lot of restoration and renovation works, a lot of works to adapt it, to make it into a new 21st century facility that the Abbey could use and the townspeople of Hexham could use and enjoy, and of course afterwards would need money after paying to restore it to actually maintain and run it. And so yes, it on paper looked like a wonderful offer, but the Abbey needed to go away and think what they could do with that space, what they could do to make it useful and valuable, and what it could do to earn its keep in the future, and where we could go to find the money to restore it. And we realised that the Abbey is visited by thousands of people every year who want to know about its history, and we have even more of a story we wanted to tell than just we could tell within the Abbey itself. So we thought that a heritage centre that would tell that story of the lives of the people who've lived and worked here would be something that would be important. And also space for education and learning. At that time, about 6 years ago, we were already welcoming nearly 3,000 school children a year to the Abbey for educational purposes, and they were doing everything in the body of the Abbey. A nice big education room would be an absolute wonderful asset, and that building space, that Carnaby building, could do that for us with some investment. And we worked out that to create a new visitor centre and heritage centre and that education centre, that would be about a £3 million project. Now, a building like this, beautiful building, we don't have £3 million just waiting for that. But we did know we could go to the Heritage Lottery Fund and ask them if we had this vision to create this newly restored, newly accessible piece of wonderful heritage and history that could tell people about heritage, get them to enjoy it and value it. the Heritage Lottery might be able to fund that project for us. And indeed, that's what we actually put together, was a bid for a £3 million project. And we bid to the lottery for £1.8 million towards that, to create that project. Off the back of that, we had to have other things that would continue to make an income, to continue to sustain this wonderful project once it opened. So we got lots of events and activities that we could house in the site, and a fantastic new cafe that we would create in the project as well, to welcome people in and to increase our visitor numbers and to get people to spend and to support and donate us to continue that project. So we put our bid together for £1.8 million to the lottery, and you'll notice I said it's a £3 million project, so mathematicians amongst you will work. As with all HLF funded projects, there's always an element of matching funding. And I was brought in to put together the heritage aspects of the lottery bid, so talk about all those things that we could do in the building that would bring it to life and restore it and share heritage with the wider public, but also to source that matching funding. And we looked at that in several different ways. We had some key benefactors, the Allendale family, who have a long association with the Abbey going back hundreds of years, the Mercer's Company, who are one of the key patrons of the Abbey, again going back into the Middle Ages. They were very generous with key pump priming donations. We then looked at other benefactors in the region, the Fenwick family, for example, and I think we all know about Fenwick's retail, but the Fenwick family have a very ancient association in the region. They were very generous. And then looking at grant-making charitable trusts, the Garfield Weston Foundation will have my eternal gratitude, because they were one of the first major donors to give us, they gave us £50,000, just with me giving them the vision of what we had, and I have the great thanks to them, because it made it so much easier for me then to go to other wonderful people like the J. Paul Getty Foundation, other wonderful trusts and foundations, and say, look, Garfield Weston think we are a good thing, please donate. And then our third really important leg of the funding was a community fundraising project. And we raised over £120,000 out of community fundraising projects, ranging from the brownies baking cakes, the local junior school having a sing-a-thon in the Abbey, the local Queen Elizabeth High School rowing club having a row-a-thon on the Abbey flags, with rowing machines, I hasten to add. The water was a bit further away. They rowed all the way down the Tyne, metaphorically, and up the weir on their rowing machines to raise money. We had concerts. We had fantastic talks. John Grundy came and gave a fundraising talk. And as I say, we had £120,000. And that was so important, because that means all of the people in the town and the community around here all have a stake. They've all done their little bit. If they bought a cake off their school cake stall, they have a little bit of this project and a little bit. And that's so important, because when you go into the first part of the centre here, the very first story you'll see talks about the people of the town, right from that earliest days when Wilfrid first brought his idea to build this beautiful abbey here and this shrine and the sort of visit, the place of pilgrimage. It was the local people who built it, the local people who worshipped in it, the local people whose lives were tied up in that. And that comes right up to the present day with the people who live here and who enjoy this beautiful church and who have put that effort in and provided that fantastic funding that made that project come to fruition. And so I was very pleased to be able to say that we got our £1.8 million from the lottery and our matching funding. We had some other exciting things that happened on the way, in that we started off with one building with a cafe, a learning centre and a visitor heritage centre. Partway through the project we acquired another part of the building which had been the magistrates' court, but due to local reorganisation became vacant. And for those of you who visit today, if you go into the major hall now, that beautifully restored function room, that was the old magistrates' court. That was another part of the project that came on stream while we were doing the work, and we were very lucky. Heritage Lottery gave us their blessing as well to bring that into the project. It's given us another new asset for the town, a fantastic function room that we use for concerts, for meetings, for shows, for wedding receptions. It's a wonderful juxtaposition to the Abbey here and all those things. So we had that project, and what I was able to say was that 2.5, 3 years ago, we came to an absolute wonderful opportunity. We got our money, we put our project together, and we were able to open it. And I bring us full circle, because part of that benefit of the project is this lovely little porch that we're sitting in here now, which gives us just a tiny little hint in a modern interpretation, beautiful green oak, of what those original cloisters of the Abbey, where that very first idea came from, where we were going to reconstruct the cloisters. Well, here, this little link building between the Abbey and the new visitor centre is just a little taste of that, and something that again provides a fantastic little asset for us. It's given us a dry spot to have our interview here today, but it's also a place where people can gather for weddings, a nice place to have those sort of meetings. When you come to the Abbey Festival over the next few days, you'll be coming in this way, you'll be getting your tickets, you might be coming out to get your glass of wine at the interval and get a chance to enjoy it. And so even this part of it has been a nice sort of full circle area. And that gives you a sort of feel for the Abbey project and my involvement with that.
Jane, as a Hexham resident, it must be a very satisfying thing to have been involved in such a project and to have given something so important back to the town. I know that you're working in Durham now as part of their World Heritage Site work, but you're also still involved in Hexham with the Hexham Heritage organisation, aren't you?
Yes, certainly. I think as a heritage professional, I'm very lucky, because what I do for my living is actually something I enjoy doing in my spare time as well. And so I came to Hexham when we moved here about 14, 15 years ago, and the beautiful heritage that we have all around us in this town, both the physical heritage, the bricks, the stones, the mortar, the abbey, the moot hall, the jail, all those beautiful buildings, and the more recent buildings that tell stories, but also the stories, the intangible heritage that's held within those stones. And that's something that I feel very strongly and very passionately about, is we can all, or many of us, can appreciate the aesthetics of these beautiful buildings. They are beautiful. But what really the important thing is how these buildings have been used over the centuries, how people have lived in them, what they've done in them, and that, I believe, talks to an even wider audience. You know, I'm willing to admit not everybody is turned on by medieval masonry. Sometimes I can't understand why, but I'm willing to admit that. But everybody can identify with the people's lives, how those people lived. You see it here in the Abbey Project, and something that Hexham Heritage does is a group that works together in trying to bring those stories to life. It's a fantastic group of volunteers. Many of you will know Judy Lloyd in many of her guises in town, but she does a lot of work researching in the archives at Woodhorn, the archives we here have at the Abbey, of the stories of people's lives, and then brings those to life through happenings around the town, through Heritage Open Days. Some of you will have been up to the Moot Hall for Heritage Open Days last year and heard stories about the court records that there were, and the sort of stories of criminal ne'er-do-wells in the town over the last 200-300 years, and discovered that actually things haven't changed. Lads got drunk on a Friday night and had a bit of a fight in the marketplace 300 years ago. We might be able to equate that, I hope not perhaps, but similar boisterous things that have happened on a Friday night. We, for example, had a murder mystery, a story which came through the courts of a woman who was accused of murdering her mother-in-law, and we had the story we could reconstruct from her evidence of what her alibi was, and find those places around the parish of Hexhamshire and the wider area and reconstruct her alibi, and we think she got off. Actually, I don't think they ever found anyone who was found guilty for the murder of the mother-in-law, but the lady in question survived. Hexham Heritage, just most recently for Heritage Open Days, did some work on Georgian Hexham and brought to life a little bit of the marketplace life in Georgian Hexham, and are looking at the moment with the bid and other ideas about new life for the shambles and how to bring it back to life as its sort of marketplace centre. And so I can really recommend, do look at hexhamheritage.org on the internet, and you'll find out some of that living heritage and living history, and there's an opportunity to get involved in that if people would like to.
Jane Gibson, thanks very much for talking to Hexham TV.
Well, thank you.